In the remote village of Abadozi, a place surrounded by dense forests and ancient traditions, life seemed peaceful. The villagers lived in harmony with nature, guided by their elders and the wisdom of the past. But beneath this serene surface, a sinister force threatened their very existence. This force was embodied in a man named Ezenwa, a figure of immense respect and admiration, yet one who hid a dark secret that only a few dared to suspect. Ezenwa was the village's healer, a man whose knowledge of herbs and ancient rituals was unmatched. By day, he was the villagers' savior, curing ailments and offering advice that seemed to come directly from the gods. His presence was a comfort to all, and his reputation spread far beyond Abadozi. But Ezenwa was not what he seemed. Under his calm, benevolent exterior lay a darkness that few could perceive. Among those few was a young girl named Amara. Amara was different from the other children in Abadozi. From the time she was small, she had the ability to sense things others could not: vibrations in the earth, whispers in the wind, and most troubling of all, the shadows that clung to certain people. Her grandmother, Adaobi, had always told her that she had the eyes of the ancestors, a gift passed down through their bloodline, but one that came with a heavy burden. The trouble in Abadozi began with the disappearance of children. It was always the youngest, taken silently in the night, leaving their families in despair. The village was gripped by fear, and each disappearance deepened the sense of dread. The people looked to Ezenwa for answers, and he would offer his condolences, his promises to find the lost ones, and his reassurances that all would be well. Yet, despite his efforts, or perhaps because of them, no child was ever found. Amara could see what others could not. When she looked at Ezenwa, she saw the shadows that surrounded him, swirling and shifting like a living entity. She sensed the malevolent energy that pulsed beneath his skin, though she could not yet understand its source. Her heart told her that Ezenwa was not the savior the village believed him to be, but something far more dangerous. She tried to voice her concerns to her parents, but they dismissed her as a child with an overactive imagination. Even her grandmother, Adaobi, who shared her gift, urged caution, fearing what might happen if the truth came to light too soon. One night, as the village slept, Amara was stirred from her sleep by a chill in the air. Her heart raced, for she knew something was wrong. She crept to his window, peering into the night, and saw a figure moving swiftly through the village. It was Ezenwa, his form cloaked in shadow, moving like a wraith between the huts. The healer paused at the door of the Igbo family, whose youngest son, little Chidi, had been sick for days. Amara's heart thudded in his chest as he watched Ezenwa slip inside. Moments later, Ezenwa emerged, but he was no longer alone. In his arms, he carried Chidi, who lay limp and silent. The healer's face was twisted, no longer kind and wise, but cruel and menacing. As Amara watched in horror, Ezenwa's body seemed to dissolve into the shadows, blending with the night until he and the child were nothing more than a whisper of darkness carried away by the wind. The next morning, the villager woke to find Chidi gone, just like the other children before him. His parents were distraught, and the villagers gathered to comfort them. Ezenwa was there too, offering words of solace and promising to perform a ritual to find the lost boy. Amara could hardly believe what he was seeing. How could the man responsible for Chidi's disappearance stand there, pretending to be the village's hero? Amara's heart burnt with anger and fear, but he knew he had to do something. She tried to tell his parents what he had seen, but they dismissed his words as the ramblings of a frightened child. She went to the village elders, but they too waved him away, unwilling to believe that their beloved healer could be capable of such evil. Desperate, Amara sought out Neka, an elderly woman who lived on the outskirts of the village. Neka was a seer, shunned by most for her strange ways, but Amara knew she had a wisdom that others lacked. When she told her what he had seen, Neka listened carefully, her eyes narrowing as she considered his words. "You have the sight, child," she said, her voice a raspy whisper. "The spirits have shown you the truth, but truth is a dangerous thing. Ezenwa is not what he seems. He is an Ogbanj, a spirit cursed to walk the earth in both light and darkness. By day, he heals, but by night, he takes what is most precious to us." Almara's stomach churned at the revelation. She had heard tales of the Ogbanj spirits who brought both fortune and misfortune, but he never imagined one could be living among them, masquerading as their protector. "You must be careful, Almara," Neko warned. "The villagers are blind to his true nature, and if you confront him, you may find yourself alone. But you have the sight, and with it, the power to reveal his deception. You must find his Iyua, the talisman that binds him to this world. Destroy it, and you will break his hold on the village." Armed with this knowledge, Almara returned to the village, determined to expose Ezenwa. But how? The healer was cunning and had the trust of everyone. If Almara acted too rashly, he could doom himself and fail to save the other children. One night, driven by a need to uncover the truth, Almara decided to follow Ezenwa. She waited until the village was asleep, then slipped out of her family's hut, moving silently through the shadows. She watched as Ezenwa left his home, his figure blending seamlessly into the night. With a mixture of fear and determination, Almara followed him, careful to keep her distance. Ezenwa led her deep into the forest, farther than she had ever dared to go alone. The trees grew denser, their branches intertwining to block out the moonlight until the path became almost impossible to see. But Almara pressed on, her senses guiding her through the darkness. At last, they reached a clearing, a place that seemed untouched by time. In the center stood an ancient stone altar, overgrown with moss and vines but still exuding a powerful, dark energy. Ezenwa approached the altar, and as he did, Almara saw him transform. The kind, gentle healer the village knew faded away, replaced by a figure cloaked in shadow, his features distorted by a malevolent grin. Ezenwa began to chant in a language that Almara could not understand, his voice low and menacing. The ground beneath the altar began to tremble, and from the earth, he pulled a small, grotesque object, a talisman that pulsed with dark energy. Almara realized with a jolt of terror that this was the source of his power, the object that allowed him to manipulate the villagers and feed off the life force of the children he had taken. Almara knew she had to act, but fear held her in place. How could she, a young girl, possibly stand against such a powerful being? But then she thought of the lost children, their faces twisted in fear, their lives cut short by this monster in healer's clothing. She couldn't let him continue. She had to stop him, no matter the cost. Summoning all the courage she could muster, Almara stepped out of the shadows and into the clearing. "Ezenwa," she called out, her voice strong despite the fear that gripped her heart. Ezenwa turned, his eyes glowing with a dark, unholy light as he saw her. "Almara," he said, his voice dripping with contempt. "You shouldn't be here. You don't know what you're dealing with." "I know enough," Almara replied, her hands trembling as she took a step closer. "I know that you're not who you say you are. You're the one who's been taking the children, feeding off their souls to keep your power." Ezenwa sneered, his form flickering as the shadows around him thickened. "And what will you do about it? No one will believe you. I am the village's savior, their only hope. They would never turn against me, especially not for the word of a foolish girl." "But they don't have to believe me," Almara said, her voice growing steadier. "I just have to stop you." With that, she lunged towards the altar, aiming for the talisman in Ezenwa's hand. But Ezenwa was faster, his shadowy form darting towards her like a snake. The two clashed in the center of the clearing, the force of their collision sending shockwaves through the earth. Ezenwa's shadows lashed out, trying to ensnare Almara, but she fought back, her senses guiding her movements as she dodged and struck, determined to reach the talisman. The battle raged on, but Almara was relentless. She knew she couldn't match Ezenwa's power, but she didn't need to. She just needed one chance, one moment, to break his connection to the dark forces that fueled him. And then it came. Ezenwa, overconfident in his strength, left an opening. Almara seized it, diving towards the talisman with all her might. She grabbed it, feeling the dark energy surge through her, trying to overwhelm her. But she held on, drawing on the strength of her ancestors, the spirits that had given her the gift of sight. With a cry, Almara smashed the talisman against the altar. The object shattered, and with it, Ezenwa's form began to unravel. He screamed, a sound that echoed through the forest, filled with rage and despair. The shadows that had clung to him dispersed, and the dark energy that had fueled him dissipated into the night. Ezinwa's body crumpled to the ground, lifeless and empty, as the clearing fell silent. Amara stood there, panting, the shattered remains of the talisman at her feet. The danger was over, but the weight of what she had done hung heavy on her shoulders. When Amara returned to the village at dawn, she found the villagers already awake, wondering where Ezinwa had gone. They were confused and lost without their healer, and when Amara tried to explain what had happened, they refused to believe her. To them, Ezinwa had been a hero, and the idea that he had been a monster in disguise was too terrifying to accept. But Amara didn't need their validation. She knew the truth, and so did her grandmother, Adaobi, who welcomed her back with a knowing nod. The village would heal in time, and the memory of the missing children would fade into legend. But Amara knew that she had done what needed to be done. As she grew older, Amara became the new guardian of Abadozi, the protector of the village against the shadows that threatened it. She carried the knowledge of her gift with pride, knowing that it was both a blessing and a burden. And though the villagers might never fully understand the battles she fought, she knew that she had kept them safe from darkness that could have destroyed them all. The shadows were always out there waiting, but as long as Amara was there, they would never win. Thank you for joining the journey through Obodozi's shadows. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you never miss another tale from the shadows. Until next time, stay vigilant. The shadows are never far away.